Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited for this week's guest, Ashleigh Boehm. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So the name of the podcast is Courageous Leaders Changing the World. So the one question that we ask everyone is, what's the time that you've had to summon more courage than any other time?
Oh, gosh. That is a big question. First thing that comes to mind is, I'm just going to go straight into the deep end here, is getting on the plane to go to Peru, mid-Saturn return, to spend a month in the jungle before any of this stuff was kind of mainstream or popularized. Like, this is 2016, having absolutely no idea what was going to happen, but also understanding that my life would never be the same again. So it was probably the biggest decision I made, and it came from such a place that I don't even know where it came from. It was the call, the typical call. So I couldn't even rationalize how I got there. I couldn't make sense of what was going to happen. But it was like the most deep pull, but also absolutely terrifying, Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of my story, my personal development kind of story was that. Baptism of fire, that was, straight in the deep end. Yeah.
Yeah, there's very few people that start with plant medicine.
Yeah, they start with a month in the jungle, exploding their life. Yeah, totally. But I mean, that was it. It was just, I think at the time I was so deep in a pattern that I couldn't break, or I didn't have the tools, or even I wasn't in an environment of people who were in the work. I felt like it was just the biggest induction into it. It was the only way that I was actually going to start to crack through the deep and the very, very rigid layers that had me just stuck in cycles. So it felt perfect, although terrifying. Yeah.
What were some of those patterns and layers that it unraveled for you?
Yeah. Well, I, from a very, very young age, was taught to externalize all my value. So I was a child gymnast. I'm talking 5 years old. I was training to go to the Commonwealth Games. I was doing little trips to the AIS. It was quite a serious thing. I was just very talented, and I didn't have parents that were putting pressure on or anything. My parents were amazing. They're incredibly supportive, but there just became this very, clear association with external validation and winning with love and attention. And it was at such a young age, and it was whilst there was all this kind of pressure and competition and all these other elements that were involved that just really instilled this lesson is the way you gain love and safety and attention is winning and perfection, because gymnastics is the sport of perfection, right? And there was also all these other layers around competition with other women, because my best friends were also my biggest competitors. So I felt an immense amount of pressure at a very young age, and also felt that the people that were closest to me that I would enjoy, I also felt were against me on some level as well. So, I think that's where it all began and all started, and then carrying that level of internal pressure and hypercriticism and perfectionism into my teens, that developed into an eating disorder, which was, I think, spanned close to 15 years on and off. Again, lots of shame, lots of, self-criticism, judgment, self-loathing that ties in with that kind of mental illness. And it got to a point where I hit, my late 20s, or I think it was around 30, where I got on the plane to go to Peru, where I was just so exhausted from the performance, from the mask, from externalizing everything, from torturing my body, from playing all these roles, just to sustain this level of acceptance and love. I think my soul was just ready to crack through. So that one core pattern of externalizing everything just manifested with my relationships with men, with my eating disorder, my body, my friendships. It was just this same thing over and over again, and it was permeating through every area of my life. So it was just, that was the root, is just the pure externalization, which I feel is pretty common as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's most of the core of the work that we do is most people are looking outside of themselves for everything when everything's always within you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, it's easy to say, but very difficult to actually live.
Yeah.
Because it comes with layers and layers and layers and layers, and it plays out in every area of life. We're consistently seeking outside of ourselves. We're seeking validation. We're seeking acknowledgement. We're seeking all of these things outside of ourselves, and it's that journey to be able to go back within.
Yeah.
And
agreed. And I think the hardest part is our environment reinforces it over and over again. You know, I was getting all the validation and all the security through all these masks that I was wearing. So I was just kept getting told by my environment that keep doing this. So the thought of being authentic and the thought of being raw and open and vulnerable and who I really was like made no sense because there was no evidence that I would still be loved because everything I had was a result of the performance I was putting on. Yeah, it's big. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it definitely plays out, especially in the fitness industry. I think it was probably like 6 months into PT. I was like, this is not a health industry.
No, not at all.
Someone sold me the wrong dream.
It's a bruised ego or like ego wound industry, right? We're all just playing out our biggest insecurities about who we are and forcing it onto our physical body as well, and just getting so much reaffirmation from it. Yes, it's so interesting. I always think there's like this pipeline of like fitness coach to personal development to spiritual person pipeline where we all have to go through this this transformation. Like almost every single, I think, coach or person that I know who's in the personal development space now started in the fitness industry because you have to learn that that's not it. And then you start to explore the deeper layers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see that too. There's like also the relationship one as well. Do you know the relationship coach one?
Yep. Yeah.
So people go, people get into like OnlyFans or sex work and then they become a relationship coach or an intimacy coach and then a polarity coach. And then it goes into embodiment. It's just this consistent thing that, whatever your wounds are coming up in your life shows up in a shadowy way, and then you start to integrate that a little bit more, and then you start to help people with it, and then you go through that journey.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, my identity and the work that I do and the message that I'm putting across has evolved so many times, and it continues to. And I think that's a big piece that I've had to come to terms with and actually embrace is like, I'm not here to teach one thing. I'm here to like live and learn and teach from that place. Like I've really switched up the way that I'm approaching my messaging from being the authority to just being the human who's living it and learning it and talking from my place of personal experience and integrating all the tools and all the frameworks and all the things that I have learned through, my professional studies, but more through the lens of like, I'm not here to be an expert. I'm here to just live and teach and impart, I guess, lived wisdom as opposed to like trying to, push people through a certain framework. And that's been really relaxing as well, is to just be like, okay, cool, I don't need to know it all. I don't need to have it all figured out. I just have to live it and then be authentic in sharing the journey that I'm on, hoping that somebody else can connect to that and relate to it and learn from whatever piece that feels valuable to them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember, you see some people out there that just like talk about the one thing their entire life.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, are you not growing? Okay. I just more like a boredom thing for me as well. Like one of the things I think that has tied into my whole story is like I'm very neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Like I've got ADHD, but like very much on the high spectrum of it. And being undiagnosed as a woman your whole life, it's challenging. Like I didn't even graduate school because I couldn't. And I know that I'm intelligent, but I just couldn't function in that learning style or in those environments. But part of that and the gift of being neurodivergent in that way is just being able to see and do many things at once and be constantly sort of in a state of flux and being able to piece together lots of different pieces of information and integrate them. So for me, having one thing to talk about and focusing on one thing is actually so limiting to my capacity, and my mind just cannot. It just cannot. Like one of the big pieces that I was working with, because it was relevant at the time, was helping women with disordered eating and healing body image stuff as the result of, being eating disorder, fitness industry, and then, that pipeline into like, okay, how do I undo all the damage that I've been doing and all the wounds that I was projecting onto my clients? And I did that for a while and I was getting a lot of momentum with it, but I was so disconnected from it because I'd moved through it. So talking about it felt like heavy, even though I had a lot to offer, I just couldn't anymore. So I actually had to burn that to the ground, even though I was making a decent amount of money from it. I was just like, I just can't do it. I need to keep evolving and talk about what feels real for me right now. And that's blessing and a curse, I suppose, because I keep being able to like learn and grow, but also it's very hard to build a business that keeps on shifting every single year. But it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I've definitely followed that journey. When I tried to do the one thing for longer than was alive, I was just depressed.
Oh, drains you. And it feels like a disservice to the people that you're helping because you're not in it. And also I couldn't connect to the messaging and the, like, even when I was going to create content, I'm like, this is so an old identity, and I don't like being dragged back into that mindset of having to put myself back in that place again of thinking like, how was I feeling at this time? I'm like, I'm done with that, you know? And the whole point of growing and evolving past something is to really not have to go back there. So there was a certain point where I had evolved enough where it still felt relevant and passionate, and then I was like, no, it's dead now. I have to just kill it off. Yeah.
Yes. My partner knows kind of my seasons of burning things to the ground now.
Yeah.
So she said to me this week, she's like, oh, your 18 months is kind of coming to an end. So
for a whole identity shift. Yeah. I get that. And I had a lot of shame around that. I'm like, do people think I'm just like this chaotic weirdo who can't stick to something and I'm like, don't know anything? And again, it's just like that's that criticism of not really accepting who I really am, which is a person who's constantly in flux and constantly growing. But when you are raised in an environment where people get one job and they become an expert in one thing and you're just like this being just floating around, learning lessons, jumping from different things, it does feel like you're doing it wrong, or it does feel like there's something wrong with you. So that's been a big piece of like, releasing and I guess learning that lesson of authenticity is to just allow my passion to lead me and know that that's how I make an impact, is to not put myself into a box, but to just be like authentic. Like that's been the big, I think, word or the focus is authenticity, which I think is at the core of absolutely everything. They say it's like the highest human vibration.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Someone was saying like
Zach Bush
love.
did a reel on it that went like absolutely bonkers, and it was that they were doing these tests and they basically hooked them up, and he said that they're measuring when people are in the energetic frequency of love, and then they're measuring when authenticity, like when you get goosebumps, it's like this higher level of frequency that just like
100%.
alchemizes things.
Yeah.
And we're running an event this week, and one of the speakers said that in 2023, the word of the year by Merriam-Webster was authentic, because so many people are recognizing that they're not really living an authentic life, and what does that actually mean to live an authentic life, and how is that different for them versus someone else? So I'd love to know what authenticity means for you.
Yeah. I mean, great question. I think it's just ultimate truth, and that looks different in every single moment. And it's one of those things that is very hard to describe because I feel like it's an experience as opposed to something that we can conceptualize. Like it is hard to conceptualize. I feel like it's an experience. And for me, it's really like the journey in order to feel more authentic is to almost do the exact opposite of what I used to do. Like, you know, contrast frames is a really great learning thing. Is like, okay, I'll just do the opposite of that. So, and the breakthrough point for me was to realize that everything I'm doing to try and gain the love and acceptance that I want is moving me further and further and further away from love and acceptance. So every time I have to perform or be a different version of myself or like, you know, water myself down or perform for love and validation, it actually moves me so much further away. So I would look at what those patterns are and what those performance things are and where I feel like I'm not being completely truthful with what I want to do in that moment or what I want to say or what feels right, and just do the complete opposite. And the more that I've done that and felt that kind of growth edge or felt that bit of like nervous system activation, I'm like, okay, well, this is it. This is what I need to do. So to answer your question, for me, I know I'm becoming more authentic when I'm feeling like really stretched in terms of expressing myself and asking for what I want and like letting go of being perceived in a certain way. Yeah. Does that make sense if I describe that well?
Yes.
It's hard. Yeah, it's a really hard question to answer because I think I'm still in process.
Yeah.
But I know I'm on the right track because I'm really pushing myself every day. And I'll have a thought about something I want to do or say, and there'll be that opposing thought come in, and I'm like, cool, even more reason to do this, even more reason to take that little step forward. So, yeah, it's difficult to understand what authenticity is for you when you've never had access to it. So I also think it's a process of just like really understanding yourself and also, understanding the root patterns and the root conditioning programs that are pulling you away from it and going to that source as well.
What's been an area that you've been putting yourself at your edge in that more recently?
My voice.
Yeah?
100%. Yeah. I have had, and I'm going to go a little bit spiritual we were here for a second. I know that this is a safe space for that.
Go for it. I've been waiting.
Yeah. Bring it. So I'm really big into astrology for many reasons, because it's all archetypal. It's all Jungian kind of archetypes of the unconscious mind, which I froth on massively. That's my vibe. But also in some of the ceremonies I've been in, I've been told like that's your blueprint. Like if you need answers, look up. Like the stars are going to tell you. Like this is your connection to the higher realm is through the planets, and it's not for everybody. Some people like access ancestral information. My ancestors are up there, they're aliens or some shit, I don't know. Either way, that's come through. So the more I've gotten into it, the more I've been understanding like the cycles of life and the different activations that happen at different points that are calling you into different identities or to bring forth different qualities. So that Saturn return was the first one that got me on the plane. I wasn't into this stuff then. But when I look back, I realize that that's a thing that people go through in their life that creates this urge to break through into a new space. So there's one that happens with us at around the age of 35 to 42, which is this, I never say it right, Uranus. I say like Uranus transition, which is, and that's the planet of rebellion and the planet of like radical like authenticity and individuality and questioning and breaking paradigms. And it hits at a certain time, like between 35 to 42, which is where a lot of people get divorced, and specifically women leave their partners. And I went through this big like transition within myself then when I really started to look around like how I'd been conditioned as a woman and what societal script that I was playing into that was so against what felt authentic to me. So the panic around marriage and children and choosing the wrong partners based off what things look like on the outside as opposed to like deep alignment because I needed to get married and have children to be a woman, or just the ways that I'd given my power over to relationships or outsourced security and validation through my relationships. Like that was a big thing. And in my astrology chart too, I've also got what's called a stellium in the 7th house, which is all around relationships. So relationships is where I'm here to learn. And it's like a big piece for me. So I had this big awakening just around my womanhood. And a big piece of that is not expressing strong opinions because like mouthy, loud women, opinionated women are not wanted by masculine men or, you know, that kind of paradigm of like to be a feminine woman, because I lived in Byron Bay for a couple of years too. So there was a lot of that sort of polarity stuff that was being projected onto me. And then, I started to realize how much I've been trying to perform a perfect woman role when really I'm very strong and I'm very opinionated and I'm very like strong energy. And I just got kind of angry that I was being told that I'm unattractive to men because of all those qualities which make me so unique, which are authentic to me. Like that's my authentic alignment. And I grew up in a household that just didn't have this like traditional role thing. Like my dad is incredibly gentle and kind and loving and that kind of vibe. My mum worked for ASIO. She was a spy. She was like really powerful woman. And I learnt that you don't have to be this way or this way. Like it just was never a thing in my core programming. It wasn't until I moved into the world that it became like this, men are like this and women are like this and boys and girls and this kind of separation, which made me really suffocate those parts of me that were more masculine to the detriment of my authenticity. So that's kind of been the biggest breakthrough moment that I've had recently, is just to get really angry around that, allow myself to feel mad and talk about that. So when it comes to like the way that I'm working now is I'm talking more to the cultural societal programs as opposed to the familial ones, you know, those, because I grew up in a household where like, that was just never a thing. Loving parents, stable, everything great. It was only when I entered into the world that I started getting all these projections onto me. So using my voice to help women understand that they don't have to be a certain way to be loved, and that men don't have to be a certain way to attract women, and to kind of like really talk to this weird culture war that's going on, and this, the anger and I guess the disconnection between men and women, but mainly to wake women up to the fact that they can self-source. They don't need to outsource safety and validation through men specifically, and relationships with men, which obviously creates a lot of backlash from men who don't like that thought or that idea. So, but I felt very passionate about it because like throughout my life, I'd given my power over to men and relationships so much that it was so damaging to me. But I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it because it's what I'd been told. So yeah, that's been the biggest piece, is to talk about that stuff. And I've copped a fair bit of backlash as a result, mainly from men, of course. But that's been the growth edge, is to be like, I don't need you to validate me. Yeah, so it's been interesting. But equal and opposite side of that, I've had so many women reach out and be like, thank you for talking about this. Like, thank you, because I felt trapped in the same paradigm of fear of being single or alone or leaving my partner, a fear of like the judgment of what that looks like, but also men reaching out being like, thank you for talking about this too. You're providing perspective and understanding, and I've got daughters and I want them to be in a world where they can be who they are and they don't feel like they need to be in a relationship to be safe or validated. So there's been this backlash and this intensity, like negativity come at me, but at the same time, more positivity. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I talk about is, you know, in business, the depth at which people throw money at you is only equal to the depth at which people are throwing rocks at you.
Totally. Yeah, it's that real thing of you can only be loved to the degree that you're willing to be hated. And I think I played in that middle ground too much. And a big piece for me as well is I want to be loved. Like I do so badly, like everybody, but I have to be seen to be loved, because to be loved is to be seen. And I just wasn't seeing myself. When you're watering yourself down and you're not saying what you think and you're playing perfect woman roles, like I was not seeing myself. Therefore, of course, I was attracting all these partners who were mirroring back to me the fact that I wasn't being my whole self. So not only do I see it as a way of just like honoring my authenticity, but I also know that that's my direct line to love, like real love. Yeah, so it's also scary but exciting, because I know that that's the only way now. Like it is.
You've mentioned watering down a few times. Where do you think right now you're watering yourself down?
I think actually I did this post in my car. I filmed like a reel that I was about to post, where I still have a little bit of fear of being misunderstood, not saying it the right way, and having people, I guess, project or receive it in a way that triggers them. And I don't ever want someone to feel upset. That's never going to be my intention. But I think that just sort of means that everyone's just not saying what needs to be said. So I think there's this fine line of bringing the conversations that I have behind the scenes in my life with my girlfriends that are happening in those circles, but not so much in public. That's my intention, is to start to talk openly about the stuff that we are scared to say, but also be mindful that I have to use my words very carefully, but then also not. So, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of walking that balance of like, how do I say this in a way that's articulate and gets my point across without curating it too much? And I think that that's something I'm still learning to master within myself, because sometimes I say the wrong thing, or I say it in a way that I'm like, oh, that sounded awful. That sounded like inflammatory. And I don't want to be that person, but at the same time, I also don't want to be like that vanilla person who has to say it right and it doesn't land. So, yeah, I think my messaging is becoming clearer and my intention is becoming clearer. I still think I'm working on how to say it in a way that feels true and honest and direct without being a bit of an asshole about it. Maybe I can be a bit of an asshole every now and again, but that's okay.
Just not all the time.
Gets the clicks, doesn't it? Yeah.
What's the theme of one of those conversations that you're having with your friends that you're not doing on social media at the moment?
I think it's a lot around the experiences of women and men, and more so from, I guess, through a feminist lens. So this is something that I was like really afraid to talk about openly, is that like I'm 100% a feminist. I didn't know what that word meant. I thought it was like man hating and all that kind of stuff, but it's literally just equality, equal social, economic and political rights for women. And I have a lot of friends that feel the same way. Like we have these views around the experience of in our lives as women of just like sometimes just being constantly harassed or being treated differently or not being given the same respect, and like the big things as big as sexual abuse, which has happened amongst, I think it's like 1 in 6 women, which is a huge number, like scary number, but nobody really wants to talk about it. We're scared to say it because we don't want men to not like us. And so this is the edge for me, is to like bring that out and have these open conversations around. We need also men to acknowledge what it's like to be a woman sometimes, but to do it in a way that doesn't feel like aggressive or othering or to create more divide. And I think that's the answer, is not for women to bitch about men and how shit they are behind the scenes. It's like, well, what is going on here? How do we like address the issues that are making women feel this way about men? Because I also see a lot of like really toxic stuff online of women who just like really are going hardcore on the misandry, not feminism, like the man hating, which I am not for whatsoever, but it's a reaction to patriarchy, right? So there's been this like huge pendulum swing back. And so I think the conversations that I'm having with my friends are the ones that's like, how do we honor our experience and not shut the fuck up about it because it makes men feel uncomfortable, but in a way that brings us all closer together as opposed to further apart? Because we shouldn't, if the pendulum swings too far in the other direction, everyone loses again. So, that's been, I guess, my main intention is to bring it to the middle very quickly so we don't have to be in this like divide.
What's your vision then for how men and women relate then?
I think to have this understanding, an integrated understanding of men and women and masculine and feminine energy, because I do believe in masculine and feminine energy. I just don't believe that our roles are so separate. I believe that we're so integrated, and some people will have like a different mix, so to speak, but I just think that a big challenge is to understand that everyone is everything, and to not put people into these binary roles where men have to be like this and women have to be like this at the cost of their authenticity. And I think it's like moving away from that and also just helping people accept both parts and integrate both parts, because a healthy relationship is not like someone playing this role and someone playing that role. It's people like moving, interchanging energies at whatever time is needed based off the context of the situation, and also helping people integrate the opposite energy. So I've been told I'm a masculine woman my whole life. I've never felt that way. I just felt like me. But I know there are qualities of me that are masculine, but I don't associate it as being that way. I just know that there's certain traits that are strong and certain traits that are soft, and I don't feel like I need to be more or less of anything. Because I had a very integrated family, and this is just something that we just never, it was never a thing. So I think it's just coming to a place of more understanding of our complexity, and each individual's like, tapestry of different qualities that are not necessarily gendered, but like integrated.
What do you see as some of the current pitfalls of most polarity teachings?
I think just that. I think siloing men and women into certain roles that are ultimately detrimental. And I think, I'm going to go a bit rogue on this topic, but it's this masculine feminine polarity thing is rooted in Christianity. Like that's where it came from. And Christianity is patriarchal, and it has men in dominant positions and women in subservient positions, which is ultimately not good for women. Having men always in leadership roles and women always being the like the server, the submissive one, has meant that women have been trapped in relationships where they can't escape because they don't have financial resources and they haven't ever worked a job, and now their husband's cheating on them or abusing them, or just they're unhappy and they don't have the capacity to leave because they've been in a very traditional like setup in their home. And I think I can only speak from a women's perspective on that. I've worked with a lot of women who have been in those traditional sort of masculine, feminine dynamics that haven't been as balanced, and they feel really emotionally neglected and also trapped, like so trapped. Because if men aren't also integrating their feminine, then the emotional disassociation can just create this just like transactional dynamic of like you do this and I do this, as opposed to, there being a true integration of both power and love. So I think if it's too separated, then women feel trapped, but also men can feel like emotionally isolated within themselves as well. So it's the same system that has male suicide rates so high, that has women getting killed by their partners and abused and all that kind of stuff. It's the same conditioning, and it's rooted in that like dominant male, submissive female paradigm where men have to be like this, women have to be like that. So I think that that's the problem, or that's the challenge, is not to ignore that masculine and feminine energy exists, but also encourage integration of both. So women feel powerful and they have resources and they're resourceful and they're not reliant or codependent with a man or dependent on a man, but also men are emotionally integrated and nurturing and kind and soft and gentle and connected to their own emotional body as well. Yeah.
And what do you think is the primary thing that men can do to be able to support in that integration, and then women can do in that integration on their side?
I think listening to each other, having these conversations, I think not just men learning from men, but men learning from women and vice versa, like us really having open conversations about our experience and with the intention of integration, not to become more of a man or more of a woman, not these like performative roles. I think it's really socializing a lot with men and women together as equals, like actually seeking out to, integrate the parts that, you haven't met within yourself. But I think it's more just like the first step is having conversations and learning from each other, which is why it's been so lovely to talk about this stuff more openly on my social media and have men reach out and say thank you for the perspective. Like it's really shifting. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. And I have a lot of really great men in my life who I'm constantly learning from about their experience and what they're facing and the kind of things that they're struggling with. And I think it's just like having the openness to learn and the willingness to change as well. Yeah, but I think it all starts with conversations.
Yeah. What does someone do if they recognize that there's a conversation that's not being said, especially in a relationship then?
Depends what kind of relationship you're in, right? I think I've been in situations before where I've just acknowledged that the person isn't, I guess, ready to have that conversation. But I think the best way to approach it, if they are, or if it needs to be said, is to always start with like the common ground, the common goal, the setting the preface of like, I'm bringing this to the table with the intention of us becoming closer, like framing it as in, not here to attack or to create a rift, but actually like framing the conversation that way. And then always just speaking from personal perspective, that like, this is my experience, this is how I'm feeling, asking for feedback, how are you feeling, like how did that land with you? And then just like deciding on the intention of like coming closer together off the back of it. Yeah. Hard conversations are always hard to have. And I actually read this amazing book about this called Crucial Conversations. Have you read that?
I'm reading it at the moment.
Are you?
Yeah, one of my clients is like, have you read this? And I'm like, is that the one about that? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, no, that's the other one.
Yeah.
So I started reading it maybe like last week.
It's great. Hey, do you like it?
Yeah.
So I learned that years ago. It's probably the second book that I ever read personal development wise. And it is such a great framework to just like really, was it start with the heart? That's always the first thing is like, what's the intention? Like, what do I want out of this? And that can kind of set the tone. But when I was reading that book, I was wanting to practice my crucial conversation skills all the time. So I was like constantly trying to pick issues with my friends to try and go, okay, like, and then I'd be like, oh God, is this another crucial conversation? Like, stop. And I was like, damn it. Yeah. So I think having frameworks or like understanding how to approach things is really important because communication is at the center of everything. If you can talk about it and come to common ground, like it resolves all challenges and issues. And I'm a Gemini. I'm a yapper. That's yeah. Got a lot of Gemini in my chart.
I'm Gemini as well.
Are you?
Yep.
There you go. That's why you love to talk. You're a communicator.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I love to listen. I don't love to talk in networking situations, but I love to talk on stage and I love to talk on like podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, Geminis are the master communicators of the zodiac. So they're meant to express. Yeah.
Yeah. How important has that, lens of astrology been to you then?
Increasingly more so.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to I guess, help people understand when you have these like big mystical experiences that you can't possibly explain, and you just have to let people think that you're a weirdo and just be okay with that. But I've had my chart unpacked very deeply, and I get transit readings every now and again. And just the synchronicities are more than confirmation bias. Like, I'm a pretty skeptical person. I would say I'm open-minded, but I'm also not an idiot. Sometimes. But yeah, it's been so aligned for me that it just feels like something that I don't have to understand how it works or why it works. I don't need an answer, but I just lean into the trust that I've been told that this is where I should look. And every single time I follow what it says, things get better and better and better. So I love having a part of me that's quite whimsical and quite open-minded and doesn't make a lot of sense and a bit weird. I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with people thinking it's a bit dumb and stupid, but it's working for me. And also, it's just more than anything, even if your chart isn't completely reflective of your own personality, when you look into it, it just it calls you to just focus on a certain archetype, unconscious archetype that you can just look into anyway and see what part of your life, what's going on in that part of your life, or what archetype is needing the most attention or might be taking over. So if anything, it just gives you points of self-reflection that are going to be insightful anyway. So
Yeah, it's interesting. For like a lot of my spiritual journey, I didn't know like my time of birth or anything, and people would I'd have clients who would do different charts for different times of birth and stuff to try and
figure out what it feels like. Yeah.
And then one day I was at my dad's house back where I grew up in a small town, and I'm like going through some stuff in the garage, and then I find like a bag of my stuff, and then I find this thing and it says my time of birth.
No way.
Yeah.
So what's your rising then?
I don't even remember. I don't remember. But my partner knows my charts and all that stuff. And then all my clients, one of my old clients, Jess, she was always, Jessica Ann, she's always like done up like different charts for me. And she's like, she didn't do it, but like I'd have people who'd muscle test my birthday and stuff, and they're like, all right, this is going to be a chart. And she was the closest because she's very psychic. She's like, oh, I think it's about 8:30 at night, and it was like 8:40 or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think that it's ancient technology, right? It's been around for so long, so long. And actually, I heard this interesting story when I came out of that ceremony round, when I was actually lying outside on the dirt, like looking up at the planets and just getting all these downloads. It's like, this is where you need to go for all your information. I was like, okay. Anyway, I was told the facilitator afterwards that was my experience. And she's like, yeah, that's really interesting, because I had a friend who traveled to Africa, and he was living amongst these tribes over there. And they were saying that they can hear the stars, like hear them. And he was like, wow, what? And they said, you can't hear the stars to him? And he was like, no. And then the next day, the medicine man came to him because they thought there was something wrong with him. He was sick because he couldn't hear them. So I think that, we can shit all over it, but it's technology or a communication system that is so old that there may have been a point where people could actually communicate, because there's tribes there who literally can listen to the stars. So that to me, I was like, I knew it. So I knew it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just an interesting framework, and you get all these cool memes and stuff pop up in your algorithm. Yeah, it kind of breaks up all the intense stuff online. It's just a few little astrology lols.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard listen to the stars. I've heard a lot of cultures that will like listen to the wind or talk to the plants and all of those things.
Wind, stars. Yeah. These tribes were communicating with the stars, with the planets. Yeah, it's all legit. Well, as you would know with plant medicine, that was all communication with the plants. So it's all like, source consciousness. It's all the same thing. It's all coming from the same place, whether it's a plant or the wind or the stars. It's information that's being seeded through. But I think we have so much technology and externalized sources of information now, and we're so cerebral, we're just completely cut off from that, which is why I love having something that I can't explain, but there's just like a deep knowing there for me that it's valuable.
What do you see as, I don't know if this is playing it in your spaces, the kind of rise of the born again Christians from people who have been like in New Age stuff?
So I'm going to nerd out on something here.
Hit me.
Have you heard of spiral dynamics?
Yeah.
Yes. Blue level, all the way back to blue level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like New Age stuff is pushing up, I guess, towards.
Could you just rewind a bit for
spiral dynamics?
Spiral dynamics.
Yeah.
So for those of the listeners who don't know spiral dynamics, can you give the 30-second 30 to 60 second kind of overview of the different values levels.
So spiral dynamics is basically a framework of human consciousness ascension. So it starts all the way at the bottom from when we were just pure survival, like trying to eat and sleep and survive, like low-level consciousness, purely survival, all the way up to a turquoise level, which is all about oneness and total integration. So those are like your Ram Dassas and your Eckhart Tolle's, like people who have ascended so far that they are close to just like unity consciousness, right? And there's all these like layers in between, and different people in different societies will be operating at different layers and different levels. So your external society might be operating at a blue level, but consciously you might be a bit further up. And so there's where I see what's happening right now with this return to Christianity. So Christianity is actually pretty low level consciousness. I don't mean to say that, and I want to preface this is not like judging people. You just are where you are because of your environment and largely out of your control. And so that's a level that came after the red level, and red level was all about chaos and warring tribes and all these heroes, and it was very chaotic. And the level above that, in order to create more stability, that's when organised religion came in, because the society at the time felt too chaotic and there was too many warring tribes. So they needed to unite over something, which was God, and it created right and wrong, moralistic values, good and bad, all that kind of stuff. And it did. It helped kind of bring society together, because in spiral, everything goes from one level, which is all about the self, all about individuality, back into collectivity. So every layer you go up, it goes individual, collective, individual, collective. And so the red level was very individual and the blue level was very collective, like trying to bring people back together over God.
Yeah.
But it's a very limiting level. So what I see happening right now is society was progressing, but there was so much instability, especially at the green level, which was meant to be more about community and sustainability and all that kind of more, I guess, left-leaning politics, which is a more progressive sort of thing, which is why it's called a progressive thing, because it was progressing the society forward. But because they failed to stabilise at that level and they fucked it up, a lot of people are going back to something that feels safe, which is order, order, rules, black and white. Yeah, because people just don't feel safe, so they need to go back down into something that felt very safe. That's how I see it. It's just a lack of stability and integration. And when people can't integrate complexity, they'll go back to something that feels very black and white, right and wrong, rules. That's how I see it.
Interesting.
What would you say?
I think like the spiral dynamics version of it is very important with it, and often it is because of just to add to what you said before, the original version of it is in colors, but then a lot of people have been taught it in numbers as well. So a lot of NLP teachings now will go through and say that red is 3, blue is 4. Sorry, is that right? Hold on.
It goes red, then blue, then orange.
Red is 3, blue is 4, orange is 5, green is 6.
Yeah.
And they know it like that. That's the first piece. And the shift of the spiral from one side, the I, me, mine, which is the individualistic, to the we, us, our, which is the collective, plays out. And because, as you were saying, because of the 6 or the green, that's we, us, our, people haven't a lot of the time integrated the orange 5, I, me, mine. So it drops back again to the 4, blue, we, us, our, and it's either back into the system, like they've tried to do the personal development thing and they've dropped back into the system of like, I've got a job again, I'm no longer in business, I'm going back to getting a job, I'm going back to church, I'm going back to all of those things. And the interesting thing is that often those people also don't have integrated 3 or red, which is moralistic, because it's all about evil, demonic, this is what's more right, which is morality, and all of these pieces. So it's very, very interesting because they're often the loudest people in society, and they're the people that sometimes are the most entertaining to watch.
Yeah,
so they get lots of eyeballs.
Chaos, and I think that's a thing, they're chaos agents. And they trigger that real deep because the red level is all about power, right? Like it was the first thing of like where we started to find power, which is an important thing to integrate. But I think if some people haven't integrated the shadow of that as well, because with each level there's light and shadow, and in order to truly transcend, you have to integrate. So I see myself very much yellow level. I think the very fact that you can conceptualize this stuff means that you are sort of up there, or the very fact that it's even in your field is kind of up there. But I can still notice like my shadows at what level they're operating at. It's been such a great framework for me, because like I can see using this exactly what level maybe I'm lacking integration and where I'm feeling more triggered by other people who are at that level too. So, so it's always like a great mirror of like, why is that person pissing me off? Where are they operating on the spiral? And what have I not integrated myself at that level as a way to kind of do that work? And then I'm back up in yellow again, right? So it's like I will get dragged down a little bit, especially like the political climate at the moment, I think is pulling so many people down, especially into red level, warring tribes, you and us versus them. And I think that that's the big problem. And I think because there weren't enough people who were going towards green level who had integrated that to make it feel safe, to be so collective and like multicultural and more sustainability. And I think that that's why like so many people have gotten dragged back down, is because they couldn't integrate that level, or it didn't feel stable, or there wasn't an environment that supported that integration. Therefore, it's safer to go back down and just slip into the rigidity. Yeah.
And I also think that there's definitely a level of like pseudo green or pseudo 6 in the new age, which is more just perpetuation of disintegrated lower levels again.
100%. Or even like the green level is the like perpetual victim complex and the hypersensitivity around trauma and that stuff. Like that is the shadow of that side, is like going too far into the empathetic compassion. Like you're not allowed to say like cancel culture, all that kind of thing. And that's the unintegrated, that's the shadow side of the green. Is like, where's the line between like taking it too far? And I think that that's where people get a little bit like, oh, it's too messy. There's too much gray area. There's not enough, I guess, limits or boundaries around it. And I think that's where it becomes destabilized. And I think that's what happened, I think, politically is, progressive politics were heading in a certain way, and it just was too much of that bullshit that people have gone like, nah, let's go back into this, which is not necessarily the answer. It's like integrating that level, right? So it's interesting to see things through the lens of Spiral, because it's given me a lot of compassion for people as well, and understand that people can't operate beyond a level that they're at, and their work is to integrate. And I can't be angry at people for operating there, because that's just the paradigm and that's the way it is. And like I've still got work to do at all these like different levels in certain degrees. So it's created a sense of awareness and just understanding, like a meta framework that I can see things through, but also enabled me to be just more compassionate and understanding that someone's just operating at the level that they're at, and they'll integrate, or maybe they won't, but that's not my shit. It's just the way that it is, right? Yeah,
it's interesting. I haven't gone too much into spiral dynamics for a while, but it's definitely becoming more and more prevalent. Like we had an NLP trainer in our event this week, and we were getting them to sell stuff. So she sold a values training in one of the lunch breaks, and she basically just did like 2 minutes, and then like half the room like bought tickets to be able to go and see the values training at lunch. And it was just a real recognition of the kind of need for people to be able to understand that. And I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. There's this guy on YouTube that does really good videos on it. I'll put it in the show notes if I remember what it is. But what's been something that you've recognized throughout utilizing the spiral dynamics levels of something that you've recently become aware that you've been rejecting? And then what level was that at?
Ooh, that's a really great question. I feel like maybe it is blue level, because I think that's what I'm getting the most triggered by at the moment is like the black and white, the right and wrong. And I think that's where the masculine feminine thing is like, that's been my thing, has been put into a box, and the rigid rules, because that's created the most suffering for me in my life, is feeling like everything is so binary and so this and that. And that's what's created the most suffering. So I don't know what it looks like in terms of integrating, because I think that's like when I see people who speak in such absolute terms about right and wrong, this and that, black and white, men and women, like it's something about it that really gets to me. So there's work there.
Yeah.
And I think that, maybe it is, I don't know. I don't even know how to integrate that again. And maybe it is just information of, again, maybe just compassion around understanding that mindset just creates more sense and more safety for that person, even though I feel like it's harmful for me and it can be harmful for other people. Yeah, that's a really good question. But I think the very fact that mindset or that level probably creates the most unease in me is, I feel like, because it's, especially for women, can be pretty damaging to have us just controlled. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've had clients in the past that have run entire 5-day trainings on how to speak and be a speaker based on speaking to different levels of the spiral.
Yeah,
so it's very interesting and very deep in terms of how people go with it. And one of the most common mistakes that people make with the spiral is they want to get higher, so they keep learning more about the higher levels rather than actually going back and integrating all the lower levels.
Yes, exactly. And I think that is what I know the biggest shadow of yellow level is like an intellectual ego or feeling like you know it all or feeling like a thing. And I think that that's something that I'm really mindful of because I love talking about this stuff. And again, sometimes the way that I language things does seem condescending or something. I have to try to always say I'm not meant to do that. I'm just trying to provide an insight or a framework or something. But I know that that's one of my biggest shadows is because I've worked a lot on myself and I've gone through a lot and I've studied a lot, I've read a lot, is I can weaponize that against people as well. All my ex-partners, if they asked about what was the worst thing about me, it's the fact that you don't want to be in an argument with me because I will literally utilize things that I know to condescend and make you feel small as a way to protect myself. So it's kind of I have to be so aware that this feeling of superiority can kick in as a shadow at that level. And that's also a lack of integration to a certain degree. So yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting to observe yourself, and it's hard. It's hard being a self-aware person, isn't it? Because it's great, but also it's so fucking complex.
There was this Chris Williamson tells this story. He went to see Jordan Peterson for the first time, and he's in the audience, and he's doing this Q&A, and this teenager basically stands up and asks this question of Jordan Peterson, and he goes, having such deep thoughts, is that a blessing or a curse? And Jordan Peterson just starts walking around thinking about it for a sec, does his little look here like this, and he says, you drink the poison until it becomes a tonic. It's you just keep going until it becomes so integrated that it's just part of you and it's just alchemizes everything. And when I heard that, I was like, fucking wow.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, the more that you learn, the more that you recognize there is to learn. And
yeah.
The more you recognize that you don't know,
the less
shit.
you actually know. Yeah. Exactly. And that's the rabbit hole, right? Is just accepting that you'll never know and never understand. It's just a deep pocket of ignorance that you just keep burrowing into. But I think it's, one of my biggest expanders and the person that I'm the closest to in my life, who was the one who's been leading me down on these paths, is my brother. He's wildly intelligent, but also very spiritual. He was the first one to go over to Peru, a year before me. Again, nobody knew what was going on. He just went on a trip. He didn't tell anyone because everyone would freak out if they knew what he was doing.
I'm going. My dad's like, what are you doing? I'm going on a meditation retreat.
Well, he just said he was going for a around the world Euro trip or something, came back completely different person, but he's always been at the edge for me. He's the one who introduced me to Spiral. He's dad of two, tech nerd, but also very spiritual. He'll message me and be like, what's happening with the planets this week? Because I've had, all these issues at work, or this has happened. And I'll be like, yeah. So he's got this open mind, this expansive mind, but wildly intelligent as well. And I think we were talking about this. We do this camping trip with each other every year where we just go away and just have some time together and work through our stuff. And I was having this conversation with him around the torture of being a deep thinker and expansive thinker. And the more he introduces into my life, it's adding these complex layers with this double-edged sword of it. I see things clearer, but I'm also burdened by the clarity and the seeing. And sometimes you just want to be blissfully ignorant. But I think it's really about tools. like, what do I do with this information? How do I actually integrate it and use it? Because I think if you have deep thoughts but you don't know how to action them or put it to good use or create something from that thought, then it's just like psychosis, right?
Yep.
And I found myself in that loop a lot, is just overthinking without actually doing anything to integrate that information. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Most people get stuck in personal development or even medicine worlds because, you know, that's all that they do. They don't actually show up in the world. They don't actually do anything different. Yeah. Like the integration occurs in life. It doesn't occur by then, you know, sitting medicine and then going and meditating in a cave. It's like you slowly bringing yourself back into life to be able to integrate that level so that you can get to a new level. But most people are just like, oh, I have an identity of being in the work rather than someone who's actually like living their life. It's like, yeah, you can go sit medicine. Yeah, you can go do personal development. And are you living your life as well?
Yeah.
Are you actually taking that back? In Stealing Fire, they talk about it as like communitas. It's like, how do you take the learnings actually back to your community? Because that's the last piece of integration. Until you can actually teach it to someone, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know anything. Well, that's the hero's journey circle, right? Have you brought it back to old world, and is old world different? It's useless if it's all just, I think a lot of the time, it gets a bit egoic as well, like to just be constantly learning and constantly like compiling information, peak experiences through plant medicine, all that kind of stuff. Like it really just becomes that spiritual ego, which I think is a big thing, and which is one of the best things about moving out of Byron Bay was, it was a very strange experience. I think that was a time where I felt the most disconnected from myself because there was all this external kind of stuff coming at me, especially spiritual, because until then I'd had a very like open relationship with spirituality. I started plant medicine years and years and years before, and it had never been this thing where there was this like aesthetic to it or there was like the polarity stuff. Like that was just never it. I just had this really open, individualistic connection to my spirituality. And then when you move into an environment where there's sort of just like, it almost feels like a brand, or like it feels there's something that was very inauthentic. And there was a lot of people who had been there who were just like trapped in the same cycles, doing all this breathwork circles and cacao ceremonies and plant medicine, like, and all the courses and all the things. And I was just like, there was no progress. There was no just like fun. And there can be an identity that's built around it that actually keeps you trapped because, if you actually evolved, then you wouldn't be able to constantly focus on it so much. And
I think that definitely feeds into that shift back to church as well, because a lot of those people, because it's more about the identity. When people step into six, often what happens is if they haven't integrated the other levels, then it just becomes the next mask to be able to fit in with those people rather than actually being who they are. It's like, this is the identity. This is my social media that is spiritual, or this is I just unendingly go to every cacao ceremony I can.
Yeah. So. And because it wasn't authentic, it was performative, then there's no stability there. And it is like spirituality in itself is so expansive and so unknowable and so individual that if it's not an authentic connection, then of course like how do you contain it? It just it does feel performative, and it feels too much. Or if they just get trapped in that, then they need to go back to stability and something that feels a bit more secure and a bit more rule bound. That would make sense. Yeah.
As we start to wrap up, what would you say to someone who's recognized that they have work to do on their journey to go from performative to authentic?
Yeah, I would look at the process that I've been going through is to just like understand what it is that I've been wanting to have, and then look at everything as just like a strategy. Like this is obviously a very NLP frame, is like everything's just a strategy, and to really get to the root of where this strategy came from. Like, how did I learn to do this to get what I want? And then literally, like, it sounds so simple, but like do the opposite. Do the opposite or try something that feels incredibly stretchy to the nervous system, that feels like very vulnerable. And the only way you can do it is to train your nervous system with kind of small steps, big and small. And it might be something like sharing a post that feels really authentic, that freaks you out because you think that some people might judge you for it or not like you or unfollow you, things like that, or like have a conversation that feels scary. Just like taking small baby steps to train your nervous system for the discomfort of being seen, because that's what authenticity is to truly be seen, and that leaves us open to judgment and criticism. So it's like, what am I afraid of being judged and criticized for? What is an action that I can do that puts me forward in that way? And then how can I just sit in the discomfort that's going to arise in my nervous system whilst I'm really exposing myself. And I think small incremental steps is the way that you build like the body capacity for it, as opposed to just going like completely rogue, because like you might end up finding your way back at, square one again. But I think there's value in understanding the root cause of it, but that doesn't actually change anything. It's the daily practice of stretching yourself and doing things that feel raw and vulnerable, and then just sitting in that space of being exposed and giving yourself a little pat on the back for doing it as well. It does feel good. It feels so liberating to not care what people think. And I'm not fully there, but I'm getting pretty close. And I can't tell you, like, the thing that you fear the most is actually what you're playing out. Like, the liberation that comes from being judged and not caring is so much greater than the feeling of being validated for being a fake person. Like, it's life-changing. And what you're fearing the most is probably just like a fucking story anyway. Like, who cares if someone doesn't like you or judges you? Like, your life actually doesn't change that much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just like taking small steps but doing almost the opposite of what you've always done. People are going to go explode their lives now, which I'm happy with. Yeah.
Great. Cool. I love that. I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on. What's the best way for people to find you?
Probably Instagram at this stage. Yeah, I'm still kind of building out the next iteration of what it looks like to work with me. Right now I'm just, I guess, redefining my message, putting stuff out there, seeing how that feels and how it's been received. And then, eventually I'll be at a stage where I'm ready to call in and start working with people again over what it is I'm here to do. So I'm in that transition period, in that liminal space, but getting closer to it. So, yeah, Instagram, best way to follow me, listen to me yap about random stuff and send me a message, connect. Yeah.
Epic. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. This has been fun.
Yeah, it has been. Thank you for having me.